Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world, and welcome back to Social Confoes, another edition of Ask Me Anything. And today the tables have been turned, and we have our host Jean-luc Pancharanta, who will be answering all these questions that he's been collecting. Jean-luc, how have you been?
So I have to tell a story to start off. I really have to tell a story. Yesterday I got frozen out of my MacBook.
Frozen out of your MacBook.
Yes.
In due time, it was bound to happen, right?
Yeah, it was bound to happen. Came home, tried to log in at night, couldn't log in, tried to log in again, couldn't log in, and I couldn't get into my own laptop.
Wait,
Was
so you are blocked out of it because of you couldn't log in account, or was it a hardware fault?
I think it was a hardware fault. I think the PC froze and it kind of deleted my account on my laptop. So I there was no account anymore. So it wasn't just the login. There was like literally no account. I couldn't get into my laptop.
Interesting. I've actually
Yeah.
never heard that before.
No, this is a brand new one. You have a laptop, you can't get into your laptop. So it's not getting into your email or your socials or anything like that. Just not being able to get into your laptop. And this was a good test for me. First of all, I'm happy the age we live in today because 10 years ago, I would have lost at least half access to half of the things that I should have access to. I mean, I haven't checked for files. I haven't checked
Mm.
if I still have all my files because they had to do a backup. But a shout out to my nephew Chris for for uh, for helping me with the recovery because yeah, but I haven't checked the files, but the files aren't that important for me. The most important thing is if you get frozen out, can you get back into your socials? Can you back into your bank accounts? Can you get back into your crypto? Those kind of things. Um yeah, that's
Interesting.
yeah.
So
But
wait,
that's so I've recovered everything. So
that's
like
good.
anything I need internet access to, I thought I lost my Brave rewards
Yeah, but
because I
that's
have to
connected to
reinstall.
your account, and as long as you have your passphrase, should be fine.
No, that's actually the thing. So the Brave rewards was a little different because I hadn't connected it to Uphold or anything, so it was just on the
Oh.
browser.
Hmm.
But then I quickly found on the internet that if you put like the old folder, the old Brave folder, back into the folder on your new PC or desktop, uh, then you then you actually it returns. So I'm lucky enough to still have my Brave. I mean, it's not as many Brave basic attention tokens as you have, but it still felt like I was losing out on a little bit of money.
Yeah.
But luckily,
Okay.
it
No,
was safe.
that's really good to
Yeah,
hear. Would have been
yeah,
really, really unfortunate. I know some horror stories, people
yeah.
losing access to these very sensitive types of information. But
So
that,
the
with that
first
being
trick,
said,
a good trick, is always find a way to back up your data, which we did, and fortunately we were able to do a restore. Uh, so hard to at least a data restore. So I was able to put in my old Brave folder. Straight after I reinstalled Brave as my browser, I added the old folder into the new one, and all my Brave rewards were restored. So that was the first thing that was important. And the second one was getting back into Evernote because I have a couple of things I had stored them. I've now stored them elsewhere, but I had a couple of things stored in Evernote, which I only had in Evernote. I didn't have
but
them anywhere
isn't
else.
Evernote also account bound, or is it like offline as well? I think all of
It's
these apps
online.
are currently,
Evernote is
account
both
bound.
online and it's synced offline and online. So luckily, I was able to save everything. So there are a couple of comments. So yeah, good to hear, Kay, that you were saved as well. Good evening, Anil and Jill. Quickly telling some horror stories about me being frozen out. And Rajiv says he knows all about it. I know Rajiv knows all about it. So I'm happy that I could have called Rajiv as well if I was a little bit stuck, I think.
Yeah. So yeah, we got a Hey from Twitch, and
Yeah.
yeah, Jager's my one of my moderators on Twitch.
Ah,
So,
awesome. Awesome. Okay.
but then I have to ask you immediately: do you use a password manager or a
Yeah.
manager of some sort?
Yeah. Yes.
Because
I use a password manager because I discovered yesterday that I have over 150 passwords stored on the password manager. So that's a good thing. And basically, all my socials, which I didn't realize until today when I was recovering everything, all my social media accounts have two-factor authentication. So that's a really good thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So
Yeah.
just for out of curiosity, which password manager do you use, and would you recommend for other people managing so many
Ooh,
accounts?
I'm not gonna tell which one I use. No, just kidding. No, for starters, I think for people who are just starting out that need to use a password manager, I would recommend LastPass. I mean, it's the easiest to go. If you're, for instance, if you're a Google user, LastPass, if you're used to the Google environments, if you use Google Chrome, you can now use LastPass for almost everything. I think LastPass is also on Brave if you use a Brave browser. Um, I'm using multiple now just because I want to be extra secure, and I also
Mhm.
installed two-factor authentication on LastPass. Um,
Yeah,
and
because
yeah,
nowadays they're just more than password managers. It's basically a whole ID, like a credential storage.
yeah, it's crazy, and I think that's a big difference. Like you used to have these password managers, but then you really had to be techie as well and understand everything. And like LastPass is like Gmail. It's kind of the Gmail for password managers. It's like really quick and fast. And if you're just starting out, I mean, I would just recommend that one. I wouldn't go to another one just because, yeah, you want more security. That's for people that need more security. um, but the best, I think I agree with Jager. Best way is pen and paper. That's something that I've actually written down a couple. So that's another thing. I don't have all my passwords in my password manager. I keep some of them out, but I'm not gonna play a big security expert here, people. This is just some comment. If you just wanna start out, there's a couple of good things you should do, and that's always try to synchronize info on two accounts. Always try to use two-factor authentication, and always log out. I think that's an important one as well. uh, if you don't log out, the problem if you don't log out is you don't get used to remembering valuable passwords. So
Yeah,
for me, that's a really
just
important
like
thing.
phone numbers, basically. Back in the day, you remembered
Yeah.
everyone's phone number. Nowadays, I can't even recall my mom's phone number.
Yeah.
But that brings me to actually the first question from the Q&A. Someone submitted, how do you remember so clearly? Because like remembering all those years in sports, and now we're talking about passwords. How do you have such a good memory?
Okay. Okay. So I think this is a question that's related to sports a little bit
Yeah.
because we do jigsaws, and I remember all the players and when they played and who they played against. So okay, so a little bit of context for those who are just watching that didn't see the announcement. We're doing an Ask Me Anything. Diego is basically taking questions that people send in, and we're discussing today. And the first question is about how do I how am I so good with numbers and remembering things? So it's important to know a little bit of a backstory. I'm an only child, and people don't realize that, yeah, there are some advantages to being an only child, but one of the biggest disadvantages is when you're little. Like imagine being a single child, an only child, right now during COVID, and having to stay at home and having nobody to play with. Like if you have your parents, you can still play with your parents, but I mean they're your parents. So basically, when you're an only child, you have a lot of free spare time on your hands that you don't have to bicker with brothers and sisters or little brothers and sisters. And used to spend that time when I was little, uh, analyzing sports, remembering sports, doing research on sports. So up until my 18, since until I went out and studied, basically until I finished my studies, my life revolved around music and sports. So when it comes to music and sports from 90 to 2000, maybe 2006, 2007, I'm like an encyclopedia. So I basically kind of know a lot of things. I won a Toto, so from a FAT with during the World Cup of 94 or 98, I think, or
That's
yeah,
a long time ago.
yeah. So basically, when I was like 13 years old, I beat, yeah, I think it was 1998. It was the World Cup in Korea. So I be at the age of 13, I beat out over 100 people who were predicting the scores for the World Cup, and basically just through being completely researching everything. And one of the weird ones that I had correctly was I actually predicted the score between the Netherlands and South Korea during the World Cup, which was a really ridiculous score. It was like 5-0 or 5-0
Was
or
it
something.
predicted or luck?
Well, there was some favoritism. I like the Dutch team at the time, uh, so those things matters. The one of the players of the team had the same date of birth as I had, and Aaron Winter was still playing for that team. And you have to remember, like Aaron Winter is like from Surinamese origin, and he used to be the most kept Dutch player in the history of Dutch football uh, back in the 90s, early 2000s. So those kind of things I do remember. So everything that's hardwired from when I was a teenager. Another thing that was hardwired as well is I can basically divide any number between 1 and 10 divided by a number between 1 and 10 and can give you a percentage of how much that is. Um, so give me an example.
um, 351
No, no, no.
divided
From
by.
0 to 10 to 0 to 10. No, no, I can't. I can't go above that. But like, for instance,
Well, those
um,
are easy. That's not even a
yeah,
challenge.
yeah, but some are quite hard. I mean, 3 divided by 7 is 42.9%. Like those are kind of
Okay,
that's
okay, fair,
that's
fair
where it,
enough, fair, fair,
so
fair, fair enough,
that's
fair
where it
enough.
becomes a little bit tricky. And so those things with percentages, so a shot percentage for a basketball team, if a basketball team shoots a certain percentage from the field, I can quickly calculate it because I really had a lot of time being a single child,
Yeah, and you
only
needed
child,
that to,
and I needed
do for the
so when
calculations for the
and
sports.
I mean, I don't always recollect it correctly, but I mean, um
And
when
you,
it comes to sports and musics, I usually tend to be able to find out stuff easier, especially basketball, football, and maybe a little tennis. Not that much. I don't think I can go that far back, but basketball and football, I can go
So I
quite
assume
far.
it's also because you
Yeah,
talk about it a lot, right? Especially the sports like basketball and football, that you have often conversation with friends about it. That
yeah,
it
of course.
it gets stored in your long term memory. So it's basically it's stored in
Yeah,
your cold storage since childhood, and you
yeah.
keep recollecting that. That makes some kind of sense. So yeah, that makes sense. And then quickly, we have some comments in here coming from Anil. Yeah, he also agrees paper-based security is the best, but also has disadvantages, and that's something you have to decide for yourself. What trade-off do you want? Obviously, a good evening from Samuel, and Anil immediately has a question: what is the answer to life, the universe, and everything? And I know this, but if you want to give it a shot.
No, I have no idea if there's a specific thing that Anil is referring
I
to.
assume
Yeah.
the answer Anil is referring to is 42.
I'm not sure if he knows what 42 means in volleyball terms, but 42 is actually a specific kind of hit in volleyball, certain kind of height and a certain kind of average. Um, and that's the only reference I have to 42. Another reference that I have to 42 is I think an alcoholic drink. Another reference, no, that's 52, so that doesn't work. Another reference to 42 is actually for 420, but that's not what he meant. So
Yeah, so basically the 42 he's referring to is from The Hitchhiker's Guides to the Galaxy. Really old movie and a book.
Okay, okay. So
Yeah,
Anil,
so
to be honest, to quickly jump into the question of life and the universe and everything, as I get older, I realize I know very, very little. And like even people with an IQ close to 200, they know very, very little and they don't have the answers and the solutions. Because right now, the solution that the people that are really considered the most intellectual people in the world, their current solution is flying to Mars. So that kind of gives you an idea where we're at in the state of the world at the moment.
all right. All right. I guess then let's move on to the next question before I take Greg's question from the comments. I'll tie that up in when we get to that section. So let's do a two or three quick fires and then
Okay.
move to a deeper one,
Okay.
to balance it out. So quickly, someone wants to know what's your favorite food?
Favorite food is a difficult one. I think it changed over the years.
First one that comes to
So
mind.
no, no, no. Let's. I'm gonna. You want a quick fire, but I'm gonna frame it. So when I was young, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, pizza. Then I was into Garfield. Then it became lasagna. I think when I moved back, when I went to study, it was went from lasagna to pomme and paste because I really started missing pomme and paste. So if I would have to give a generic answer, pomme and paste would be the first thing. I'm getting more and more into things like sushi now, but let's for the sake of it, keep it at pomme and paste.
Okay, what's your favorite social media platform at the moment?
At the moment, that's a good one. Where do I spend the most time? I think that's the top question. I honestly don't have a favorite social media channel.
If you had to reframe it most time at the moment?
So that's the problem. If I jump in between Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Hive, and TikTok. So I jump in between them. I'm not. There's not any of them where I spend a lot of time. So that's a really hard question. Um, if I would think like the most fun platform, like I get the most actual engagement, like fun engagement, I would go between. I might even consider Twitter. I think Twitter is really really underrated. I think
Yeah,
Twitter is really underrated.
I gotta agree with you on that one for consumption. Definitely, it's very niche.
Yeah.
All
And
right.
of course, actual the easiest question where I spend most of my time, YouTube, by far. I don't even consider it social media anymore. But
Same here
YouTube is
because
by
it's just
far the
pure
most
pure
used.
consumption.
Yeah, pure
It's
consumption. And by the social media platform that I hate the most, WhatsApp.
all right. Then moving on, I'm gonna build this one up. What
Mhm.
did you want to be when you were young?
I wanted to be two things when I was young. Is it two things? Yeah, two things. One, a bum,
A bum?
and yeah, and two, I wanted to be the owner or the manager of football of a soccer team.
Any one in particular, or was it just any football team?
I think when I started out, it was Ajax. Pretty sure it was Ajax.
So, did you ever think that you would be into social media looking back 15 years ago in this, or 15, 20 years ago in the social media space now, being a public speaker and everything? If I
Sorry.
were yeah, let me rephrase that. So, you wanted to be a bum or own a soccer field? That's totally left field from what you are doing right now. So, did you ever consider being in this type of space, being a public speaker, um, running a marketing agency, online agency? Did you
No,
ever think that would be possible?
no. Well, thinking possible, yes. Um, so I shifted a lot between thinking like what I wanted to do. But I think one of the things that happened is when went to study in Tilburg, is that in the first year I made a decision, a conscious, pretty conscious decision, that I wanted to uh, present every group, every study group that I was into for any course. I was the speaker. I was the one that did the presentations. I never really was good at presenting. But when I went to study in Tilburg at the university, the first thing I decided was whenever I'm in a group project and somebody has to present, I want to be the one that presents it. And that's how I build up my speaking hours basically. Until I was like a third year or fourth year student, and I was like, maybe I should give somebody else the chance. But I was just taking every speaking gig that I could get. And once you speak uh, for class in at university, then also when I had to do presentations for like our study association, I would do the presenting, and then you would present for like rooms with 300 students. So basically all those fairs that you would have, they were going away or kind of organically. I never studied like, okay, what is the tactic, what should I do? I just, because of speaking experience, I started to learn like things that I'm comfortable with, and that's kind of how I built up my speaking skills. So, and from the entrepreneurial perspective, um, yeah, I kind of got pushed a little bit by my dad because the entrepreneurial side comes basically from him, a little bit from my grandfather's side as well, but I wasn't aware of that when I was growing up. And my mom is more an artist. So I'm kind of stuck in between my parents where I want to be more of an artist, but I'm kind of more respected as an entrepreneur as instead of an artist. So I haven't found the balance in that yet.
All right. Speaking of balance, we'll go into that in a bit. But quickly on, I guess you've built that confidence over time for public speaking by, just hitting the hours, taking every opportunity. So having all that experience, do you have any tips for anyone wanting to improve their public speaking?
I
Three to four
actually
tips.
If it's in Dutch, I actually have a whole video on YouTube about it. So if you're really interested in speaking tips, I might share it next week as well, because it's getting brought up now. So there's a whole video on that. But I think for me, the most important thing about speaking out is don't talk about things you don't know. Like, and that's it's a very big dilemma, especially when you're doing presenting for school, because when you present for school, especially school, a little bit on a higher education level as well, but especially when you're like in middle school or high school, when you have to speak and present, you have to present about something that you're not really familiar with, and you're being graded on what you actually tell. And the teacher is looking like, does he or she know what he or she is talking about? That's difficult. But once you've grown past that page, when you speak like for clients, when you speak for companies, when you speak at a big event, nobody's there that's there actually knows what you're going to say. So you completely can decide what you put on your slides and what you talk about. So a mistake that people often make is try to speak about things that they're familiar with, but not really. They don't know into depth. Leave those things out for the questions, because then you have more time to frame your answers. So if there's something you're not really 100% sure about, just take it out of the presentation and bring it up when the question round comes around. I think that's the biggest advice I can. Don't put things in your presentation that you don't 100% surely know the full detail about.
Yeah, also elicit interest, right? Basically. And people don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, so
Uh,
people don't know what you're going to talk about. So why put in a slide where you're struggling? Like when you're practicing, you're putting in the slide, and every time you reach that slide, you really struggle. Just take the slide out. I mean, but people are afraid to do that because yeah, that slide, there is something that they feel that the people who are listening to the presentation need to get the information of the slide. But you can also put that information in after the presentation.
Definitely. All right. So you talked, they haven't found the balance yet between the entrepreneurial side and the creator artistic side, between your mom and your dad. But let's talk about balance as in work, life, and leisure balance. And this one comes from someone who's a dad. What techniques or tips do you have for other dads, because you're also a dad, to balance that part of your life out?
So basically, I forgot one important thing that I wanted. My real life goal, like my only life goal, it's not that what people think to be a great entrepreneur or to help Suriname develop into an awesome country. Yes, those things I want to do, but My really biggest life goal, which I catered my whole life around, is becoming a good dad. So, and that's what I learned from my dad. Like my dad, people look up to him maybe for his accomplishments in healthcare or in tourism or as an entrepreneur. But I look up to my dad for being a dad, for always being there when he had the time or made time. Like for me, it didn't matter that when I was in at school and high school, I would be one of the latest to be picked up, or I have to carpool with somebody else because he was working, and he saw it as his duty that to pick me up. So if I had to wait an hour for him to pick me up, he would still pick me up. And I wasn't the only one. I was never the only one waiting. There are always other children waiting as well. But aside from that, my dad was also our football team trainer. When I was growing up, he trained the football team. We drove rally together. I started when I was 14. I started as a navigator in the Surinamese rally sport. Um, I think to this day, I'm the youngest. I'm not sure if I'm still the youngest because Guy Fackel also participated, I think, in a Safana rally. But at the time, I was the youngest Safana rally participant at the age of 14. I'm still the youngest Safana rally organizer, part of the organization team at age 16 or 15 or 16. So,
Really? I
yeah,
didn't realize you were also in that scene. Interesting.
I won my first rally, not the highest division, but the first division. I won my first rally when I was 14 as well. So yeah, I stopped when I went to study, and when I came back, I didn't want to sacrifice my Sunday morning anymore to drive. So that, and of course, my dad was a little bit older and no longer in the rally scene. But those are things he did that I showed interest in, and he would make time and pick it up and always talk to me about everything. And from a young age, he would drill me into entrepreneurial stuff. So if we would be on vacation, he would be coaching me constantly. He was showing me what went well, what didn't go well, and basically that never stopped. So for me, like for other people, it's already like, okay, wow, this is a little bit of an abundance of information sometimes. But for me, I've been hearing it for like as long as I can remember. So it's kind of, I'm used to it, and I kind of know what things he mentions are new and what things I've heard before, and I can put it into context easier. So I think that for me played an important role for myself. Also, uh, much of my success I have to thank to my wife, because my wife is, she's really this awesome woman who, aside from putting up with me, has similar ambitions for our children and being good parents. So that helps out a lot. Now, getting to the balance between work life, for me, it's a complete struggle. I mean, it's been a struggle for 6 years now. A lot of things stopped when I got my children. So I used to do everything, and I tried to say yes to everything, which I'm sure is going to come up in another question, in another answer to another question. But when my daughter was born, I canceled half of the things that I was doing. And when my son was born, I canceled another half of the things that I was doing. So that's one tip. It doesn't work as well for anybody. But for instance, when my son was born, I finally said goodbye to the organization of the Suriname Jazz Festival, because for me it was like, no way I'm ever going to be able to combine those things. A couple of other things I had to say goodbye to. Anything that wasn't necessary for me to be a part of, I kind of called off. And so that's one thing. And I think set time is most important. Every day between 6 and 8 at night. So every afternoon between 6 and 8 is basically family time. That's nobody. You can try to call me, but you won't be able to reach me. And the biggest sacrifice I had to make when my son was born was basically the weekends. I used to work on Sundays. I used to work on Saturdays. Um, Not anymore. I can't work in the weekend anymore because that time is really family time. So I think those are really, so the 6 8 is an important one for me. That's those hours. Also, you can't reach me on my phone between 6 and 8 in the afternoon. You just won't. And in the weekend. So those are big sacrifices. And then because I have a quite hectic schedule, um, I made a promise to my wife that I would put the kids to bed at least 3 times a week. So I put the kids to bed 3 times a week. And a big advantage, my wife was actually worried about this, but a big advantage that I have is that my wife starts working at 7 in the morning, which means I have to bring the kids to school, which means I have to prep them. I have to make sure they get on at school and daycare in time. So basically, I have my children every morning. I have them for an hour. It's even if I'm just having to hurry them up to get clothed and get in the car, but it's still quality time that I get with them. And then yeah, I have the 6-8, and then I have the weekend. So basically, that's how I balance everything out. And aside from that, I just go full on work. So between 8:30 in the morning and 6 p.m., it's work. If after tonight, after the show, if I need to finish things, I just continue working. But
Gotcha.
that kind of breaks up as well. Don't, especially when you go way over 30, when you're going towards 40. You can see it in my eyes a little. You need your precious sleep between between
Yeah.
midnight and 6 o'clock in the morning. So that
Well,
does
you
that
gotta
does
get it
take its
eight
toll.
hours.
Nah,
Well,
it
if
I'm
you
not
can.
getting it 6. I'm getting 6 at
No, but
night.
that's good. It's like,
Yeah,
yeah, having to make like a deliberate choice and making time for
yeah,
those slots and making no
yeah.
compromises for that.
So if you
And
go to
also,
my calendar is like for this week, my calendar is like fully booked, like every minute. Of course, it's not possible to uh, keep going through it, and there are a couple of things that I don't manage to finish. But if you go to my calendar, you will see that there's a slot between 6 and 8 that nobody is able to touch. You can't plan anything in there.
gotcha. All right, let's check one of the questions from the comments from Gregory B. Who is Jean-luc's favorite influencer at the moment? Well, I just added at the moment, but yeah, we're being current right now.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not sure if it's fair because influencer should be somebody you follow. So there's a big shift for me personally. So
All right.
if you're gonna make it
O-
temporary, it's a little bit difficult. But
Okay,
I'm gonna
for
yeah,
context, what's
yeah.
your definition here of influencer, and then we'll base the answer off of that.
The
Sure.
person who influences my life the most at the moment. So the generic answer would be um, Gary Vaynerchuk or Casey Neistat. Like that would be the generic answer.
Mm,
Like if you look at people that I'm really intrigued by who they are. If you look at it from a perspective of thought leadership, I would go with Simon Sinek or with Nafal Rafikant. I think like if there's one person that I put him like on a pedestal, it's Nafal. Nafal is crazy. Nafal is on a whole other level. It's I just love his energy. I love the way he thinks. I love the way he projects things. He brings you at ease. So if I would have to pick someone, Nafal. If I would have to say currently, I watch a lot of chess. So I would end up with maybe 4 or 5 chess channels on YouTube. And I think for fun entertainment purposes, I really like David Dobrik's content. I know he's been through a lot of controversy over the past year, but when it comes just to just entertainment, just putting your brains on zero and just watching for entertainment, I think he's done an amazing job. But yeah,
awesome.
the classical answer would be Gary Vaynerchuk or Casey Neistat.
No, I'm happy you broke it down into categories because
Yeah,
questions like this, who's your favorite this, who do you look up to? It's very difficult to answer with just one answer.
yeah,
And because it depends on the category, the moment you are in your life and which industry, etc., you're looking
precies.
at it.
Yeah.
So, um, my suggestion for these types of questions is be more specific.
otherwise, I would just say Gotham Chess, Agad Matur, and then you'll be like, what? And I'll be yeah, Eric Rosen, Chess Bro, and you'll be like, seriously? And it's just chess channels that I watch on YouTube.
So this leads into the other Gregory's question. Tell us
Yeah,
something we don't know about you. So is the chess thing something people know about you? Because I didn't know about it before.
I've briefly spoken about it. Um, so this is also going to be like something current or something not current, but I'm gonna pull out a fun one. Uh, During my first year as a student in Tilburg, I won a DJ contest.
You won a DJ contest.
Yeah.
How?
Um uh, Tilburg at the time wasn't really culturally diverse. Um, so I just went through my list of favorite hip hop songs of all time. And while everybody was playing like Dutch music, I just took like 6 to 10 of the best hip hop songs of all time, and I just bounced the place up, and everybody just, and I didn't do it alone. So that's the fun part. I was doing it together with a very cool guy, and we kind of teamed up and we had the music, and then I just went through the hip hop classics, and like the whole place exploded, and I won the DJ contest.
Did you have a DJ name?
No, no. There was no prize money involved. It was just for the fun. It was just for the
Oh,
fun.
all right, all right. Regardless, fun fact and fun experience, I
Yeah.
would assume, because good memory. All right, all right. This is moving along very well. So we'll get back to you, Greg, once we move to a more online topic. But let's stick to Jean-luc for a moment right now. I guess you already touched on these.
Just quickly, Jason is asking, was there Dr. Dre or was it Dr. Ray or was LL Cool J? That's for sure. I remember uh, putting in an LL Cool J song.
Cool. Um, yeah.
I'm Michael
Yeah, I
Jordan.
did.
Yeah,
I guess you already answered that part. So slightly, but let's be more specific with this next question. You already told us what one of your biggest goals was personally. But if we look at it career-wise, what would you say that currently one of your biggest dreams or targets is from a career perspective?
I kind of joke around that I'm retired. I'm really searching for a challenge. So if somebody wants to challenge me with something, I won't promise that I accept the challenge, because if I don't find it a very interesting challenge, I just won't accept it. But I'm at a space right now where I actually do need a challenge for myself. The challenge that I'm putting in for myself, which I'm currently looking at for this week, and I really want to do, is actually start a successful international career. So I actually have an international course that's being followed everywhere around the world. I think that's something that I want to have done in my lifetime. It's not something that I'm going to do for the rest of my life, but something that really interests me right now is doing an international course. And I think people in Suriname underestimate their skill level, and that in some cases you can measure up with the rest of the world, and you're not of a lesser quality than the rest of the world. And it's really kind of this inferiority complex that Western society kind of sometimes. I don't think it's consciously, but unconsciously, there is this kind of inferiority complex among people coming from third world countries, developing countries, that they are somewhat less than others. And it starts with salary. I mean, like, if I would do the same work I'm doing now, if I would do it in a Western country, I mean, the amount of money that I would earn on a monthly basis would be so much higher than what I earn currently, that it kind of puts you like, am I not that good? Am I not able to do the same things as those people? And in some cases, no, because their infrastructure isn't there. The clients with the same amount of money aren't there. But on the other side, it's still, you still have the skill. So one thing that I really want to prove is like somebody from Suriname can, and we're proving it on sports level. We're proving it on so many levels already. So let's also put it in like a small medium enterprise level as well.
Interesting, an international course. You never have any idea what topics yet, or is that still,
Yeah, how
too
to create a,
open
no,
for
I'm
exploration?
very open. How to create an online career.
How to create an online career?
Yeah.
Okay, I'd say let's build it online.
Yeah.
publicly.
Yeah, I'm going all out. I'm currently looking at options to get a little bit of a support internationally as well, a coach internationally as well. I have a couple of options in mind, and I think they all want to do it, so that makes me excited.
Okay, I want to tie this into the next question then. While it's you mentioned online, and this question
Yeah.
is more social media specific,
Okay.
but um, this question says, or this person asks, we see that recently social media jobs bring in a lot of money. And internationally, we see that people, leave their corporate jobs as well and move into more marketing, social media uh, space, creating their own consultations, agencies, etc. And this person asked, are we here in Suriname ready for that type of movement?
So there's a big disconnect at the moment. There's a disconnect between people that want to provide value and intelligible information and quality information, and people that know how to reach a lot of people. Like there's a big gap. Like um, I'm currently like there's a situation where you have like an influencer who really knows how to captivate an audience and then wants to work together with a company, and the company doesn't understand that this influencer reaches that many amount of people because they know exactly what to do to capture the audience. On the other side, the influencer doesn't know how corporate society works and doesn't know which rules and regulations you have to apply to and why certain things are important to the board. So there's a very big disconnect because the board on one side does want to have great numbers, but on the other side, like we have to uh, stay true to our company culture and what we stand for, and at the same time they want to have the same results of somebody who doesn't have the same ideas and morals and ethics as that company. And when we talk about different morals and ethics, it doesn't have to mean negatively, but you have to let go of a certain concept or a certain principle, and companies often aren't able to do that. So there is still a very big disconnect. It's really hard for influencers and online marketeers and social media savvy people to get a steady, sustainable income. So I think that's where most people struggle. The biggest reason why a lot of people that maybe work for the government or work a 9 to 5 and they want to jump to become a self-made entrepreneur in the creative space or in the marketing space, they kind of hold on to the job and the salary because it gives them security, and because they do that they don't actually make the transition to being a full-time entrepreneur. So we have a lot of entrepreneurs in Suriname who have a day job. And I, when Gary Vaynerchuk said it the first time, I really felt offended. I felt triggered because I felt it. Because basically he said was like, as long as you have a salary at the end of the month and you're getting paid by a boss or by somebody at the end of the month, you're not really an entrepreneur. You're just an employee with entrepreneurial tendencies. A real entrepreneur doesn't have a salary from a boss at the end of the month. And
Could you repeat that
that's
so it's quotable?
no, it's a Gary Vaynerchuk quote. I'm not gonna quote a Gary Vaynerchuk quote just to make it quotable. People can replay it if they want. But basically, the idea is simple. If you get a salary every end of the month from a boss, you're not an entrepreneur. You might have
So,
entrepreneurial tendencies, but you're not an entrepreneur.
So the follow up to that is how could you stimulate the youth, especially since they are seeing this rise in entrepreneurship in this lifestyle that's being called recently, to go this direction, to stimulate this type of thinking instead of holding on to that government job or that 9 to 5.
No, so basically, if we take Nafal's thought on this, and I'm not gonna paraphrase, I'm gonna paraphrase him. I'm not gonna say exactly what he said, but just to put it into perspective. Basically, you have two kind of narratives. You have the narrative of the big global multinational that is basically companies like Facebook and Google. They're stronger, they're bigger and stronger than nations. So they kind of control the narrative in the world, and I think people underestimate that. And the bigger the company gets, the more money they're going to spend in resources. They have infinite resources. They have so many expertise, so much expertise. They hire the best of the best. I heard stories of Facebook having like up to 10 solicitation meetings. So like if you want to apply there, you're gonna have to go to 8 to 10 levels of applying until you
Hmm.
finally get the job, because there are 20,000 people reaching out for 5 jobs or something like that. So that's one side of the spectrum, and that kind of those conglomerates get bigger and bigger, and that's where a lot of resistance comes from, because these organizations get too big. They own too much stake in the world, and they deliberately they destroy the world, and then they destroy the world for millions of dollars, and then they gave $1 million for charity or for corporate social responsibility to make feel like, okay, we're caring about the world, but at the same rate they're destroying the world 10 times faster. So that's one side of the story. And basically those companies destroy the middle ground, like companies with 1,000 employees, with a couple of hundred
Mm.
employees, because they take the structure that those companies have, the unique selling points that those companies have, they incorporate it in their structure, and they basically smash the competition away until there's nothing left. I mean, we've seen it with Facebook. Like, I was on Foursquare. Foursquare disappeared when Facebook check-in came. I was on Meerkat. Meerkat disappeared when Facebook Live came. So all these kind of apps that get developed and companies that get developed, they just get squashed by the really big companies. But then there is something that they can do. They can make you feel like it's personal. And there's another space where there's a win. So aside from the big conglomerates, there are also these companies that only have like 5 employees, but they're really specialized in something, and they really make feel like you have a personal connection. And the big conglomerates can't beat them because they have to cater to everyone. So these smaller companies, and I think there are a lot of opportunities there
Yeah,
for
agree.
us. And for the young Surinamese people that are looking for opportunity in the next 5 to 10 years, the offshore oil industry. I mean, Staatsoli is trying to prepare us for us. They're doing local content and trying to find local companies that are able to uh, be suppliers for when the big oil companies come in, like Total and Apache and all those other companies that are coming in from outside. All those offshore oil rigs that there are, they need suppliers, whether it's suppliers for food, for fresh water, for technical support, for what kind of support ever. All those offshore platforms, they kind of need suppliers, and all those companies bringing people in need suppliers as well. So that's something in Suriname we really have to consider. How do we? And basically, we don't have enough time because they have already established which companies they are going to work with.
Hmm.
And that's hurtful because we think like, oh, the oil money is going to come in and Suriname is going to benefit from it, but most of the money is going to go out straight away. So we have to work together and find a way, like how do we become like one of the suppliers for
Suppliers,
those
partners,
companies.
and how can you cater actually that influx of
Yeah,
people and companies that's gonna come? Because you can build businesses around those businesses
you
even.
can completely. And I'm not that kind of person. I'm very, very terrible because I want to do what I find
Yeah.
interesting and not what other people need sometimes. So that's the disconnect. So if there's something that other people need that I like doing, that's where the connect is. But just
Uh,
going out to see like, okay, this is what this company need, and I'm gonna live completely around them because there's the money that you won't be able to find me for those kind of things.
all right. Two quick fires then now in the since you are in the social media spaces, the social media online marketing industry. One, what's the best part of working in that space for you at the moment, and what's the worst part?
I think, and I hope I'm not gonna get in trouble for this one, but I think what I really like about marketing, being in a marketing space, is you get to see how companies operate. And of course, there is confidentiality as well. But when you work for like Ineffable does for 30 different kind of companies, you get to learn what corporate life is, what the power struggles are internally within companies, what the formal and informal structures are, and you kind of find similarities between companies for yourself. I mean, you can't openly discuss it because you have an NDA, but it for you from a learning perspective, it's really interesting to see companies struggling with the same thing across the board are being successful because similar threats that certain managers or certain board of directors or CEOs have. So that's really, really interesting. And it teaches you a lot. And if you're open to learn from those companies, I mean, you can learn a lot from your clients once you're just ask questions. So one of the first things that I always do whenever I get into a new building from a new client that I've previously haven't been, I look at their vision and mission statement. Like the bigger Surinamese companies, when you walk into the head office, they have the mission and vision statement of the company written down on the wall, and you can directly see within 3 months working with that company of the organization itself works towards the mission and vision that's projected there, or when it doesn't. And when it doesn't, you'll see that there's also a very high turnover, and you will see that the strategy kind of changes whenever a new manager comes into play. Well, when you see like they have a solid mission and vision, you can really see it because the team that you work with works in that way. So those are really fun things and interesting things.
Yeah, basically insights from learning. Uh,
Yeah,
and what would be the worst part?
I'm not sure
Or
it's a
what do you
bad
dislike the
part.
most? Or yeah, let's call it you like the least. Let's reframe it.
Well, if there was something I didn't like, I wouldn't be in this space, I guess. But I think the hardest part is that there's no real continuity, and you can relax and sit down and like, okay, this is gonna go for 5 years. There is no, oh, this is gonna go. I can do nothing for 5 years and I still have my position. I mean, it changes so quickly. Like one of the things that for me is the hardest is when we work with influencers and the contract is over. And it could be 3 months or 6 months, and then all of a sudden, like, okay, sorry, there's no renewal, and then the project stops, and the influencer looks like me, like, yeah, I'm sorry, you're letting me go. It is not the same as firing someone, but it sometimes feels the
Yeah.
same, like saying like, yeah, sorry, this source of income is just gonna stop and I don't have a new one for you. So
Well,
that's
yeah.
that's
But I guess
that's the
therein lies the
difficult.
challenge, right?
Yeah, well, you
Of,
can go to another client, but it's not like people think like, especially with influencer marketing in Suriname. People, I mean, I talk about influencer marketing that's already $1 million Surinamese dollars, to be fair. It's already $1 million industry in Suriname. Influencer marketing is pretty big in Suriname. Companies pay quite a lot, but it's not consistent, and not all the companies pay the same amount and pay the same. There's still lowballing offers going around. There's still one-off offers, like you get asked to be an influencer once, and basically you get paid once, and then for the next 5 years the competitors are like, yeah, but we're not taking that influencer because they appeared on the cover of something once.
but
So these kind of.
I think that's business everywhere. It's just the same business. But speaking of
No, but
influencer,
Suriname is really small, so it
yeah,
hits
everyone
harder.
knows everyone
Yeah,
also, yeah, in
no,
that
but you
sense.
don't have a lot of options.
Okay. But
Yeah.
but speaking of influencers, Michael here has a question. Good evening, Michael. On the topic of influencers, in your opinion, are Surinamese influencers sending the right messages apart from just entertainment?
If we want to have that discussion, we should have a better definition of influencers, because anybody can be an influencer. But if you're talking specifically about uh, the internet famous, thus the internet famous group, are the social media influencers that are internet famous in Suriname, do they always send the right message? I think they're more open-minded than you think, but like I mentioned earlier, I think the biggest problem that influencers still have in Suriname is understanding that part of it's a job. Like, you will get asked things by companies, and either you're able to convince them that they have to have a different approach and they should do a different approach to what they're used to, um, or you don't work with them. So imagine this. Imagine you're an influencer and you get asked for a brand deal and you don't use that brand. It's really hard for an influencer to say, no, I'm not going to promote you because I don't use your brand. Most influencers are so happy that they get like a monthly income from a company or from a brand, that they take the brand deal without having an actual connection with the brand. And this is sometimes where it goes wrong, because it becomes work. because it's not something they want to do. So they get stuck in this, yeah, in this position that basically they have to do it, but they don't have a feel to it. And if you don't have a feel to it, your following feels it, the company feels it, and you end up the deal stops, or you don't get it doesn't get, your contract doesn't get renewed. And people are still like, it's hard for an influencer to say like, no, I'm not doing this because I don't have a connection with the brand. And when
Okay.
they do and they lose the brand deal, it hurts them even more. But go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question, a quick follow-up question on that. So you've worked with a lot of influencers, and from your experience, would you say, or how many would you consider that really consider it a job, like a full-time job, being an influencer?
So I think some influencers consider their full-time job being a creator. Some influencers consider their full-time job being a marketeer. So it's not like we want to classify influencer as a job, but the actual job is something else. So the influence you have is kind of, it's I an explanation that I gave on LinkedIn, for me, like influencers are the new, is the new age celebrity. So you should see that rather as a celebrity than a job. Like nobody 15 years ago says, "What's your job?" "Yeah, I'm a celebrity." No, you're a TV host that's famous, that is a celebrity. You're an actor that's famous, that's a celebrity. Same here. Same principle goes here. You are a YouTuber, that's an influencer. But the first thing is, you're a YouTuber. You create content for YouTube. That's your actual skill. Not just being an influencer. That's not your skill. So that's where a lot of young people get stuck, because they want to be an influencer, but they want to be an influencer without an actual skill. You need that actual skill that people can relate to you. And then you have the entertainment part. So some people are just online comedians, and that's their skill. They're really good at comedy and they have a following. So basically, they're a comedian or online comedian first, and they are an influencer as well. Or they are a YouTuber and they are an influencer as well. Or they are a makeup artist and they are an influencer as well.
Yeah,
So
it's an extension. I
it's
think
an
that's a
extension.
great
Yeah,
analogy with the celebrity thing,
yeah,
and definitely people just see the flair and the fireworks and the flowers and don't see the underlying work
yeah. Like
that's underneath it.
the best influencers in Suriname, people that I really like working with, they got an actual skill. Like one of the people that I love working with, like two. I mean, I'm not gonna call too many names because otherwise they're gonna be like, "Why didn't you mention me?" But like, I really like working with Gil Ake. But Gil Ake is a television presenter, and she has presented on television for so long that it's kind of natural for her to bring messages across, and also bring messages across from companies, which really makes it a lot easier. So the influencer part is kind of secondary. I mean, she even said when she became famous was due to the fact that she brought out a book. So technically, she's a
It's a
writer that,
writer, yeah.
yeah, that became a celebrity. Or she was a television presenter because everybody knows her from In the Branding. So she was a television presenter that became a celebrity, and that's kind of influencer. So and she's one of the few people that really kind of knew how to use social media, because most people from her generation, they're famous, they're celebrities, but they don't have the influencer status. So that's also a very interesting perspective.
No, I think that's a really good take on that. Then I'll move on to the next one. Just staying in the marketing entrepreneurship lean for a bit before we switch it up. So the next question from our listener is, how can small businesses or entrepreneurs uh, broaden their social media presence through through an organic way, so not boosting. And I think we've mentioned this a lot, but just to reiterate.
Stop using Facebook. So like here's the fun fact. So you're a brand new influencer. You want to be seen, and you're gonna jump on Facebook where everybody, like all your competitors, everybody in Suriname is over there, and you're gonna fight against the Facebook algorithm, which wants you to pay them to be seen organically. I mean, like if you're a starting entrepreneur, go to TikTok and go to Instagram. Go to TikTok and post on a daily basis, and you will have 10,000 followers in no time. And once you have those 10,000 followers on TikTok in no time, you can switch on any platform and convince those TikTok followers, and maybe 10% will cross over to your Facebook as well, which is a lot easier than getting 10,000 followers on Facebook and getting from those 10,000 followers on Facebook 1,000 followers on TikTok. The other way is always easier. Once you know the newer platforms, when you get a hold of the newer platforms, are the easiest to grow because there are like five companies in Suriname that use TikTok, like five. So if you're a brand new company and you want to be seen and people know about you, just go on TikTok and promote your business on TikTok. Like that's the space. You have no competition there. Your competitors aren't on TikTok. The Surinamese companies aren't on TikTok. There aren't that many creators on TikTok, so you get seen easier. It's just plain and simple. Start on TikTok, and also even Instagram is easier than Facebook. Um, so if you have like a very visual product, start on Instagram instead of Facebook. And it's really hard because we're all hardwired that Facebook is the place to be. Facebook is the place to be. But when it comes to organically growing, I mean, Facebook is the last place you should go. Like I know Facebook pages with 100,000 likes, and once they post something on their account organically, they get like 5 to 10 reactions on the post, and they have 100,000 likes. So if you like want to organic, you don't have an ad budget, screw Facebook.
So just quickly on that, while I know this is all context specific,
Yeah.
we eliminated Facebook. Which one of the other platforms for you is the most underrated at this
From
moment?
okay, so if you have like a business to consumer product, if you have a juice or soap or clothing, I would say TikTok, Instagram. If you're a business to business, like you provide services, I would go to LinkedIn. I think yeah, LinkedIn is definitely massively underrated. I agree. That's something that we
Gotcha.
should
No,
mention
very
as
good
well. But
distinction.
business, but
Very
that's
good
business to
distinction.
business. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Um, cool. Then I'll go back to the comment section. I saw one comment come in with a question. Where was it again? Yeah. I think you already answered this partly on how you combine fatherhood, family time, and your work time in the beginning.
Yeah.
But just to add to that, has your approach changed now that we are in a pandemic or like semi post pandemic?
So yeah, so Aislinn, thanks for a question. If you haven't watched the first answer, because I partly gave answer to this question already earlier in the Ask Me Anything, but you should definitely look this video back. But what has changed during the pandemic? During the pandemic, I think I spent a lot more time with my children. Like when the first lockdowns came, I basically had to stay at home um, with my children because they weren't allowed to go to daycare, they weren't allowed to go to school, and my wife had to go to work every day. So I kind of stayed home. I worked from home, combining it was, but I did get to spend a lot of my time, and I think for me the 3 times a week that I put my children to bed, those are really important because if I'm well rested, we play games beforehand. I read each one of them at least one story from a book, and before they go to sleep, and I still stay with them and I lay down with them. And sometimes when I'm really tired, I fall asleep together with them as well. But I think that's for me really important. So that's the quality time. So the quality time has to be really quality time, and I think a lot of people mention this online as well. Like it's not the amount of time you're together with your children in one room, but it's the quality of the time when you're together with them. So, and the same goes for your relationship with your husband or your wife. Um, I mean, my wife and I, we have very different uh, biological rhythm. So that makes it difficult to match, but we try to have at least one night a week that we have together, just the two of us.
So,
So these are really kind of things you have to put in place. I have to structure my private life to make sure that I spend the amount of time that I want to spend with my family.
so in short, is it safe to assume that the quality has improved?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
If you compare it now, I mean, I When my daughter was born, my daughter surprised us, by the way, because we had a C-section planned for the 5th of December and she came the 1st of December. And I got called when I was in a weekly meeting and I rushed to the hospital. Um, so the first month, my wife joked with me, the first month that my daughter was born, I didn't see her. I mean, I saw her, but I was busy with other things because she was born in December and I'm still the chairman of Surifesta. So the combination was the combination was terrible. But since then, it vastly improved. I really take pride in being a good dad. So I do. I really have specific times that I make available and try to get my children interested in the things that I'm interested in. So yes, my daughter is taking chess lessons.
Awesome. So no worries, Aislinn. Hopefully you got something out of that. But if you want to hear the other part, you can check back in the episode around the 15-20 minute mark, if I'm not mistaken, for Jean-luc's full answer on the first part. So, all right. Then I guess it's time to move on. I think I grouped all the relating questions together. So we'll throw
Yeah.
in some random questions now to finish it
Okay.
up. Let's try to keep it short now. First one from the comments. Do you get enough sleep?
Sometimes I do. Sometimes I don't.
All
At
right.
the moment, I'm quite well rested. For the past 3 days, on average, I slept enough. But last week was
Awesome.
terrible. It was really terrible.
Okay. Next one. Which episode or idea hit you the most on social convos?
I think this is a really tough one. Yeah.
Just the first one that comes up.
I think what the one with Ivan, it really surprised me. Like I was kind of upset that uh, if you have to hand in for the Academy Awards, if you want to do short film, that currently we only have feature films that we can nominate. But if we have to nominate someone for short films, that we have to do the whole process all over again. I think that it kind of did something with me. Um,
Yeah, it was quite a revelation to see what the actual process was.
yeah, and I mean that's the funny thing because out of all the guests, I know Ivan quite well. Like we're pretty close, but still in that episode, we talked about things that I wasn't aware of that are playing a role.
Okay, cool. Next question. Is there a rule or quote you live by? First thing that comes to mind.
So there's a quote. I'm looking if I can see the book here. Uh, no, okay, I'm gonna take one because I'm seeing a book here by Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and I think it's very valid at this moment, especially in times of COVID and discussions are going. Um, One of the best quotes that there is, "If you want to gather honey, don't kick the beehive." Like it's something like you need something from someone. You need them to cooperate. And the first thing you're gonna do is go up to them and tell them what they're going to do, what they're doing wrong. I mean, like, how are you gonna get their cooperation? You know. So I think
Bring,
that's
yeah, bring flowers to the bees.
bring flowers to the bees. Like I mean, and I'm not saying be insincere. That's not what I'm saying. But I mean, like it's very simple. If you want to gather honey, don't kick the beehive. If you want to become close to somebody, I mean, from a dating perspective, there are some interesting theories behind this, but let's keep it in general. If you want to have like cooperation from someone, don't go in there and tell them what they're doing wrong, or try to convince them to have a different take without actually bonding with them and knowing what they're about first.
Okay. Next one. How can you, as a Surinamese, earn money on YouTube? Short answer, because
Okay,
this is a whole topic on its own. But
okay. So monetizations, there are different levels. One of the viewers that joined in who also asked a question just had his first Upwork job done today or finished today. So kudos to you. So we discussed this with Rahim, like how to earn money online, and then from YouTube perspective. So a couple of things on YouTube. You need to have 1,000 subscribers. You need, I think, 4,000 or 6,000 hours of watch time in the past year, and also you have to change your address that you're living in the US or in the Netherlands or somewhere when monetization is an option. And if you're really getting enough views, then you might get some ads on your channel. And if you get ads on your channel, then you will get some money. And if people click on ads in Suriname, you earn less than if people add on clicks, click on ads in Europe or in the US. And basically, that's how the monetization process in YouTube works in short. But you're not gonna get rich off that. I think the most prominent YouTubers in Suriname get a couple of $100 a year out of
Yeah,
their
it's
monetization
it's
for YouTube.
ridiculous the numbers you have to hit on YouTube.
So unless you're gonna focus on having an English channel and discuss things, and you're better than other English channels as well.
I'd like to add to this. I would add treat, unless you're really, really serious with a niche, look at YouTube as how Jean-luc look at Facebook and look at other platforms. And I highly, highly recommend Twitch. It is so underrated.
Okay,
But
so quickly. I mean, right now, as for social confos as well, there are Publish OX, Hive or TreeSpeak, DTube, Gaze TV. There are so many platforms where just for uploading your video, you get paid crypto or other kind of currencies or tokens for uploading your videos, where you're gonna make much more money starting out than on YouTube. And those platforms don't even mind. Of course, they mind. You're not gonna get the same rewards if you don't cater it specifically to that platform, but you're gonna get more rewards from it than actually just uploading on YouTube. So if you upload on YouTube, actually upload on those channels as well and earn a little bit. And even though you're not familiar with crypto, just build up until you have enough and you feel like, okay, I'm going to be able
yeah,
to cash it out. So that's
look,
already a better solution. Like YouTube is really hard, really, really hard.
look at alternatives, but don't discard it. All right,
Yeah.
next quick
I think
one.
I quickly, there's actually a girl in Suriname with close to 40,000 subscribers that does really interesting um, do it yourself videos. I'm gonna search her info and try to get her to interview her as well, because that's
Yeah,
she's pretty cool.
we should get
Uh,
someone like that on social
yeah,
converse. Let's do that next
she's
week.
really underrated. Like other people get a lot of attention, she doesn't. But I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna find the information.
Track her down. All right, next one. I don't sure I quite get this one, but assuming it's your viewer, Kaseko and social media. How do you do that?
Okay, so I think we don't take enough pride in what we're good at and things that are originated from here. So Kaseko is music originated from Surinamese music. It's a combination of calypso and African, and this is really big mix of different types of music. And Kaseko is really loved around the world. Like we don't know how well appreciated it is, because in different communities in jazz and different music communities in the U.S. and in Europe and in Asia, uh, some of our Surinamese artists are considered legends. Like Ronald Snyders is considered a legend in the music industry, and we don't give him enough credit because we look at it and it's like, this is a Surinamese guy playing on a flute. Like, how popular can you be in the rest of the world? But his music, his Kasipo music is respected by musicians all over the world. Musicians that you probably that you kind of admire, they get influenced by that kind of music. So the question is like, how do we so use social media to get it more freely? And one of the things that I considered was, it's really hard, but if you could make a foundation, Kasiko Foundation, and give that Kasiko Foundation rights that if modern artists sample these Kaseko beats, for instance, if it's being used in dance and trance or up-tempo pop beats, or it's being used in um, in hip hop beats or R&B songs, that we get some revenue from it. And the best example I'm gonna give is uh, there's a song by Shakira. There's a song by Shakira that became a World Cup anthem. And that song was sampled off a song by Crossfire. And that song of Crossfire was sampled off of a Surinamese song. So you can imagine that basically there was a Surinamese melody that was being presented at the World Cup as the official song. And uh, you know what song I'm talking about? Waka Waka from Shakira, which was
Hmm.
an World Cup song, and it came from, she basically, her team got it from Crossfire. Or I'm not sure if it's Crossfire or another Caribbean band. I could be wrong about Crossfire. I have Crossfire in my head, but it could be another Caribbean band, and that Caribbean band had it from a Surinamese band. So there's an opportunity if we understand that Kaseko is something really unique. We should be able to sell it through social media. But the difficult part is respecting it. And um, I've also discussed that maybe we should put a little bit of YouTube advertising budget, and some Surinamese songs, get them advertised in some African countries just to see if it sparks up and people start sharing it like crazy. Because
I do think it would. That yeah,
Just
I
like
do think it would.
Asonto, Square One, Rosita. Thank you for correcting me. So it was Faluma by Isasi, and then Square One took it over, and then it ended up being a song that Shakira used, or a melody that Shakira used. So thank you for sharing that, Rosita. So I really think that just like Osonto came from uh, Africa and became popular in Suriname, I'm pretty sure
The opposite would.
the opposite is possible as well. I think, is there a Guyanese guy living, or either a Guyanese or a Jamaican living in the US that regularly reacts to Surinamese songs, and he's going viral in Suriname. So this is really something that we have to figure out. Just with business, that like a Peace Corps, somebody who joined the Peace Corps came to Suriname, started making dried fruits from Surinamese fruits, and he made it all the way to an American television show about entrepreneurship. Why aren't we able to do that? Why aren't we able to do the same thing? Why is it an international React video YouTuber that goes viral with reacting to Surinamese things? Why couldn't it be the other way around? We just have to be open and just jump out more and try a little bit more. And we do have to find out how the platforms work. I think that's important as well, because we are very Facebook driven. But I mean, and the younger generation knows this, Diego. That's the funny thing. There are Surinamese people going viral on TikTok. We just don't know about it because we're so obsessed with Facebook. But we have so many young Surinamese people going viral on TikTok with 1 million views on certain videos that we just don't know about because we're not invested in those platforms.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned one thing there, React videos. That is a category that goes viral, gets a lot of views.
One of the first people to reach 20K subscribers in Suriname was actually Simanik. Simanik now is much more known as a photographer and a really good model photography. But he actually first off started with a React channel on YouTube, and he had like 20K subscribers when nobody was even aware that YouTube could be something in Suriname. So these opportunities are there, but you just have to be able to take them and
Yeah.
find them.
So following up on the topic of music, quick question from Greg: can you monetize on Spotify?
Yeah, there are certain workarounds. I mean, they're now Spotify for artists. I haven't tried Spotify for artists on downloading the app and using that, but there's several services, third-party services that help with distribution for monetization on Spotify. um, for podcasting, for instance, we don't we as social confos don't, but most Surinamese people use Anchor. If you set it up correctly, you can earn money from Anchor as well for streaming on Spotify. There's DistroKid. Um, there are a couple of other apps that I currently don't know, but they kind of distribute for you and they get like 15 or 30% or 10% of your revenue. But there also, it takes a lot of marketing to getting people to actually stream you on Spotify. So if you put your effort in it, the thing here is pick one channel.
Yeah,
Just go all out on one channel. Just decide for yourself, this is going to be my monetization channel, and I'm going to gear all my social media, all my other social media to view my content on this channel, like obsess over. And unfortunately, if you do choose a channel that isn't big enough in Suriname, you're gonna miss out. But that's the
There's
right
opportunity
strategy.
out there.
Yeah.
And so Rosita is going to start a
Yes.
Kasiko account on TikTok.
Yes.
There we go.
Yes. And if you're lucky, you should check it straight away, Rosita, because if at Kasiko is still available, you should claim that one. Just claim it. If it's still available, claim it. If it's not, you're gonna have to be more creative. But if at Kasiko is still available, you should leave this stream right now and claim it if it's still available on TikTok.
All right. Reaching the home stretch. We've already answered this question briefly in my Ask Me Anything, but there was another question here from a viewer. What's uh, what's a podcast for people who don't know what it is, and how can you start one? What do you need?
Okay, we I think we covered this a little bit last week, but just to iterate, basically a podcast is an audio version of a show, or you can consider it. It could be an on-demand radio program, like a talk show program. That's something you can compare it to. And basically, podcasts always have like a category or something that's a certain theme that they talk about. So we focus on social conversations, so that keeps it a little broad. But often you have podcasts specifically on social media marketing, or on the tech scene, or PC and repairs, or just wine, so basically, or even Coseko. So a podcast is a specific platform that focuses on
Yeah,
something, and podcast is a long form. So
yeah.
that's something you should
Doesn't
consider
have
as
to
well.
be. Doesn't have to be
Oh yeah,
actually.
you have podcast, 5 minute
Yeah.
podcast as well.
But so
But
my simple definition is
yeah,
always it's just a means of distribution.
yeah. But then what do you distribute? So you usually
A means of
distribute
distribution of an
for
audio file through a specific um, how do you call this? A specific protocol.
yeah.
That's just
And
podcast.
what do you
And it's
need to get
popular and it's
started?
been popularized by actually the iPod when
Hey, yes, okay,
that's a fun fact.
yeah, yeah. That's a fun fact. That makes sense.
That's
That's why
actually
it's
where
called
the
a
name
pod.
came comes from
Yeah,
podcast from
you
iPod.
cast
That's
it
where
on
it
your
came from.
iPod.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All
Okay,
right.
so
Then
how do you start? Very simple. You have a phone. That's how you start. You have a phone and you have a concept and an internet connection, and you just call up somebody and you just record it. And I mean, again, Anchor.fm, they're not even paying us, but it's so easy to start up a podcast with Anchor.fm. So that would be the place to start.
yeah,
And
thanks for the word that was there.
RSS, yeah.
RS feed. Yeah,
Uh,
that's a
yeah,
protocol. RSS.
I haven't heard of that name so long. I mean, that used to be a big thing when you were building websites that you have to put your RSS feed in so people could get updates. Wow, how times have changed.
Indeed. All right.
Yeah.
I think then we're at the final question here. Um, what do you think each district's superpower is in
Ah,
Suriname to be able to be set into motion for sustainable development?
this is Rajiv's question, and Rajiv knows me a little bit, so he knows a little bit about the way I think. So, to put into context, I studied urban development and planning. And one of the things that during my studies we were interested in and we had to research is all these European cities that try to become European capital of culture and what they were willing to do to become capital of culture. So on a yearly basis, different cities in Europe get crowned as the European capital of culture, and basically it's kind of getting the value of the city up, getting tourism up, getting business up for people to become interested in that city. And I really believe in the DNA of cities. So one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of cities make is in Europe is they want to be this and they want to be that and they want to be that, and it's basically a framework of what they want to become, and they completely neglect basically their DNA. What is their strong suit? And so, from a similar perspective, I've been thinking like if we want to develop Suriname decentralized, we would have to figure out what's the strong suit of every different district in Suriname, and basically develop the district based on its strengths. And that puts it takes the pressure away from the capital, from Paramaribo, because not every right now everything is clustered in Paramaribo. Everything is completely costed in Paramaribo. If you're in the periphery of Suriname, the goal is get to Paramaribo. If you're going to school in the interior, you have to go to high school and to university in Paramaribo. If you want to go to the bank, we even see that there are movements, and the banks are one of the few companies that are already moving out to the different districts. But there's a lot that's not in the districts, it's only in Paramaribo. And that's due to the fact that the district doesn't have its own economy. So we should, if you really want to sustainably develop Suriname, we should develop the districts and have each district have their own economy, which they don't rely on Paramaribo as much anymore. So if you would divide the districts into their strengths, um, for me personally, Nikeri is quite easy. I would think that Nikeri has the potential to be the production district of Suriname. I mean, the rice fields are already there, but there are different levels of production. But I think it should really be the production capital of Suriname, and also make it easier to Guyana to actually export things out to Guyana and into the Caribbean, and maybe find a partnership. If you're already building a bridge together with Guyana, find a way to make it a win-win. It's not that easy. I mean, I'm very much aware of that, but Nigeria already has the industry, so I think that's the easiest one. Uh, I might get some disagreement here, but I think Coroni is the perfect place to set up the ICT infrastructure. Coroni is the perfect place to become the ICT hub of Suriname. I believe it because, and now there are other ways that the internet connection comes in as well. But one of the biggest transmission internet lines comes in through the sea, through Nikeri. So if you set up your ICT structure there and you get the internet, you tap it off the main
Yeah,
wire straight
geographic
away.
advantage.
It's a geographic advantage. Everything that can go wrong between Coroni and Paramaribo that goes wrong now, it doesn't go wrong there because you're directly to the source. So I think that's one of the biggest advantages, and it's easy to set up the infrastructure there. So so that's definitely where I think that's the first thing. It's upsetting that the coconut industry in Coroni no longer exists, but I'm pretty sure there still is some potential there to do more with coconuts and coconut oil and coconut crafts. There still is, and I mean it's so brandable marketing wise, as well as a district. But you're gonna have to get people from the outside in willing to live there, and there has to be economic benefit to living there, which currently there isn't. But if you put up an infrastructure, if you're the Surinamese government and you tell people, listen, you can go live in Coroni. Internet in Coroni is free. Let's take that for example. Just say like people, we're gonna give an incentive. Internet in Coroni is free. Whether you're starting a business, whether you want to live there, internet in Coroni is free. See what kind of movement we can get. So that's for Coroni. Uh, Saramacca is the most difficult one. I don't have a lot of insights on Saramaka, what their strengths or what the DNA is. I think I would have to talk to local experts there to give me a better insight. Uh, it could be cattle, it could be some kind of production industry as well. But I really have to. I'm not familiar with Saramaka's DNA. Uh, Paramaribo, the capital, that's. I mean, I don't think there will change a lot there. But surface industry wise, Paramaribo would still have a strong suit. Uh, Para is also Wanika is also interesting. Uh, I think there are a couple of moves that already are being made, but you should look at what does Wanika have that Paramaribo is less of a strong suit in, and try to develop Wanika more towards that direction,
Complementing Paramaribo, basically.
complementing Paramaribo. Para is for me the most interesting one. I believe Para should be a hub. I really believe that there should be roads from all districts to Para, and it would put a lot of less pressure on the current roads that we have. If you could drive straight from Para, from Sandere, you could drive straight to Nikeri. That would be really useful. If you could drive straight to Coroni, if you could drive straight, so making Para a hub would make a lot of sense. Thank you, Anaka, for putting that. Agriculture is indeed something that I think would work for Saramaka, but Para should be our hub. Basically, if you want to do it smartly, you would make a ring way around Para, and have opportunities to go to the different districts from there on, and not everybody using the same road. Um, so that would be a very interesting thing. I think Brokopondo, which is already we're already seeing that, but Brokopondo should be our mass tourism experience. I think that's most suited for mass tourism, much more than ecotourism is for Sipaliwini, and sustainable. And with mass tourism, I'm not thinking like thousands of people, but definitely hundreds of people. Like a lot of recreational facilities. In if the commute is better, would be better suited in Brokopondo than even in Para. Um, Leave Para for the locals and Brokopondo for international tourists. I think that's maybe a fair way to use it. You could do it the other way around as well, but I don't think that will work because most of Para recreationally has already been filled in. So Brokopondo has a really lot of potential for tourism, and I would consider doing that because it's the easiest way. It's less expensive as well. Going Sipaliwini, it really gets expensive immediately because you have to go by plane or a really long boat trip. So for ecotourism, I would definitely say Sipaliwini. For a little bit of more commercial, easy access tourism, I would definitely go for Brokopondo. Um, Comoena, there's a lot of opportunity there for um, I think if you want to go green, Comoena is the best place to go green to experiment with everything that's about green. Less roads, less traffic, more bikes, uh, solar infrastructure, but also of course Comoena is quite known for fishing. So I wouldn't let go of that in the fish industry either. I think that's very, but the
So smart
eco-friendly
city
aspect,
in Kamoena.
yes, definitely. And then Marawena, I I really believe that Marawene could be the creative capital of Suriname. I really think there are really a lot of talented creative people there, and if they are given the right opportunities, they could really create things that we are not aware of that could be made in Suriname. Uh, and I think that's underestimated, and there's not a lot of I don't think there's enough credit given to Marawena for being as creative as they are. So I think I that gives
That's yeah,
it
that's all
gives
sense.
a general a layout of how I would for now interpret the 10 districts of Suriname and focus them on their strengths.
Awesome. I think that's a whole section we could cut out of this episode and post and use as a case study uh, for those who want to uh, or who want to rise up to the challenge. But with that being said, I think that's it from all the questions that have been coming in from you. We've gone a bit overboard on a time, but I
Oh, it
think
was fun. No, it was
it
fun.
was
I didn't
well
feel
worth
it
it.
was too long or too
I was
short. I
definitely
think it was
well
just
worth
right.
it. Rajiv really loves the answer, so there's some homework there, Rajiv. Uh, you are also an influencer in various spaces, so let's make use of those talents, those strengths, and those opportunities. I saw a few comments come in that I glanced over. Joel joined in halfway. Fun fact: he came from an Eric Rosen video to this podcast, so uh, didn't get a chance to give him a shout
Oh,
out yet.
Joel.
But shout out to
Okay.
Joel.
Joel, let's connect on chess.com. Let's play a couple of matches. I only play uh, Blitz, I think. I only play Blitz.
And one more, another fact check from Anil. Adam Curry came up with the word podcast. There we go. Thank you for checking that, Anil, and sharing with us. But we are at the end. So, as you did with me last week, do you, I'm going to ask you, do you have one or two, do you have a specific question for the viewers to think
Yeah,
about as we
that's
close
the
off
easy
this
one.
episode?
Um, I want you to go into your phone and look at what apps you spend the most time on in the past week and send us a screenshot through app or through messenger or to anywhere that you'd like. Uh, Go through your phone, see where on which apps you spend the most time, make a screenshot and just send it to us. And I will connect this to a giveaway for everybody this coming week that shares a screenshot um, of their phone and the consumption, what they app they use the most. We're gonna put you in a prize pool, and I'm gonna give away uh, an NFT worth at least 200 SRD.
Well, there you have it. So to repeat, send a screenshot to either one of us or through email it to casual@confoes.com. A screenshot of your most used apps this week, and you
Yeah,
have
of
a
your app
chance.
usage, your phone usage this week, what you app you use the most, and you get the opportunity to win a prize of worth at least 200 SRD. And I think it's gonna be an NFT, but I'll see. Depending on who wins, I'll give a couple of options uh, for you what it can be. But I'll invest at least 10 US into in your prize.
Awesome. I think we should expand on that to some more giveaway interesting ideas. But with that being said, people, thank you for tuning in. We've been live on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 platforms today. How great is that?
It's pretty
And
awesome.
yeah, and we appreciate all the questions you sent in, all the comments in the comments section, all the support you've given us over the past half year. This is our half year point mark, and we are going full speed ahead for the next half year, or at least five months. So expect another guest. We don't know yet who is gonna be in next week, but we're gonna try to
We'll
some
figure it
get
out.
yeah, we'll get something interesting. So audio versions of the episode will be released on Saturdays as usual on all podcasting platforms. If you missed it, you can check it out there. Share with your friends. Give us feedback of anything you'd like to change or
Give
have
us a
differently.
review on Apple.
Give us a review on Apple Podcasts if you use Apple Podcasts. If you don't, you can always download the Apple Podcast app on your Windows computer and give us a review through that. I went through that process, so it's not exclusive to Apple users. But yeah, thanks so much for the support. With that being said, I give the final word to you, Jean-luc, and then you can close it off.
So that was my Ask Me Anything. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll be next back here next week at 9 o'clock on the Tuesday night. This was Social Confoes for today. See you guys. Bye bye.